that you cannot predict everything that's going to happen. You know, in this globalized world that we're in, where we have this just volumes of information coming at us from our fingertips to everything that we can get, we have this false sense of security that we know what's coming next, and we really don't. And as I reflect back on my 38 years in the Navy and, you know, a multitude of combat missions that I flew, I really did start to understand that I can only control so much of my environment. There are things that I can't control.
Definitely.
And for all of us here in the United States and around the world, COVID-19 has given us a really sharp lesson in that. So understanding that we can't predict the future, that we are not going to predict our career paths, we're not going to go through every open door that we thought we set in motion, those doors will occasionally close.
Hello, this is Marco LaRock. Welcome to Marco LaRock TV. My name is Marco LaRock, your host for Inside a Growing Mind, where we interview leaders, entrepreneurs, game changers for the purpose to inspire and inform you. Today on episode 77, we're so honored to have the President, Ted Carter, here with us today. How are you, sir?
Good, Marco. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much. So tell us, who's Ted Carter?
So Ted Carter is a guy that grew up in a very small town in rural Rhode Island in New England. Had the opportunity to go to the U.S. Naval Academy, not really knowing what I was getting into. Graduated in 1981, became a commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy, flew in fighter jets for most of my life. Eventually would go on to command an aircraft carrier and eventually retired just about a year and a half ago from the U.S. Navy after I was the superintendent or president, if you will, of the U.S. Naval Academy. And then a year and a half after that, I found myself right here with you as the president of the University of Nebraska System.
That's awesome. That's impressive journey that you had. So I think you flew 125 combat mission on 6150 flight.
Yeah.
What does it look like, to be on those flights?
Well, it's one of the reasons I probably stayed in the Navy. I fell in love with aviation. I started flying in F-4 Phantoms, would eventually transition to the F-14 Tomcat, was there during the whole Top Gun teaching and learning world. I was a Top Gun graduate in 1985. And I just loved the exhilaration, the thrill, but also the professionalism that went with flying high-performance tactical jet aircraft. And there is a teaching and learning aspect to all that. I mean, most of my career was teaching young pilots how to fly and land on aircraft carriers, which I really enjoyed doing that. So there's just a higher calling in doing something that's bigger than yourself when you're performing with a team in aviation.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was in San Diego, I think 2 years ago, seeing all those massive, and everything, and then seeing the plane come on, land on them, was just like, that's kind of like a miracle. How did that happen? How is it possible,
It is crazy, and I was a part of that when it was a very dangerous profession, and I was very fortunate to have a very safe and healthy career. And aviation has modernized over the years and gotten safer. So yeah, I did that for, flying part over 38 years in uniform.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as you travel to different country and maybe coming to Lincoln, Nebraska, how do you adapt to those different part of the world when you go in?
Well, anytime you move to a new area, the most important part of knowing that area is the people. And that was the first thing that my wife and I did when we came to Nebraska. We traveled all over the state, covered the entire state in about 15 days, multiple cities a day, meeting people, thousands at a time sometimes, 10 sometimes, it varied.
Yeah.
And that really gave us a sense for who Nebraska is through the people. And then you have to learn more about the geography and the purpose of the state. Obviously 90% farmland here in Nebraska, so there's a beauty to the purpose of the land here that has to be understood. And I've now, over the past year and a half, come to know more and more. Every day I still learn something new about Lincoln or Nebraska as a state.
That's amazing. So what are your leadership principles as you have led multiple teams, organization? What are your principles?
I'd say my biggest leading principle is empowering. You know, there is a way to bring people together and get them to do whatever task it is that you're trying to complete, but it never gets done as well if you don't empower them, give them positive leadership, positive reinforcement, give them the resources and the tools and the vision for what you want to do, and then let them go do it. When they have that kind of buy-in and they are motivated to do a task, you're always going to get better results. So that's, I would say, the basis of my leadership principles is just empowering people to do their jobs.
I also know that one key element to achieving goals is discipline.
Yeah.
And how do you inspire people to stay disciplined to get things done?
So discipline is sometimes a little misunderstood.
Okay.
Discipline is really nothing more than actually doing what you say you're going to do. And sometimes we lose sight of that a little bit. And the only way to achieve doing what you say you're going to do is first you got to build trust with your workforce. They've got to believe in you, and you have to conversely believe in them. You have to know that bad things happen every day, and when bad news comes to you, you should never get excited or lose your cool over it. You become solution oriented, and the sooner you get little problems brought to you, the quicker you can fix those. The other piece about discipline is getting people to understand that they have to always take care of themselves. In other words, nobody's going to take care of you better than you.
Yeah.
How we treat each other with dignity and respect is the culture of any organization that we're in, and how we take care of our stuff, whether it be a building, a piece of machinery, whatever the most important thing about what we have. If you do all those things, and then ultimately, the most important part of discipline at the end is doing things on time. It's amazing to me how many people are in the delivery of a product business, and they really care about getting the product right, but the on-time part is sometimes lost a little bit. So I always tell everybody, if you can deliver whatever it is your product is on time and correct on the first go-around, you're going to be better than everybody else. So those are some elements that I think fold into discipline.
Yeah. So my other topic would be around resilience. And as you have been in the Navy, dealt with all these things, how do we approach resilience and also fear?
So resilience and fear are actually connected. The first thing I would take on is fear. If you're not afraid of the great unknown or what's coming around the corner, you're probably not very healthy. So a little bit of fear is okay. In fact, I would tell you fear generally will up your game a little bit. The second thing is to make sure that you understand that you cannot predict everything that's going to happen. You know, in this globalized world that we're in, where we have this just volumes of information coming at us from our fingertips to everything that we can get, we have this false sense of security that we know what's coming next, and we really don't. And as I reflect back on my 38 years in the Navy and, you know, a multitude of combat missions that I flew, I really did start to understand that I can only control so much of my environment. There are things that I can't control.
Definitely.
And for all of us here in the United States and around the world, COVID-19 has given us a really sharp lesson in that. So understanding that we can't predict the future, that we are not going to predict our career paths, we're not going to go through every open door that we thought we set in motion, those doors will occasionally close. And then how do we go into another door that opens up? And will we be successful? And the fear of that is what can actually make us do better. So yes, resilience is the ability to attack the unknown and be successful in managing the fear so that it is not as much of a mystery.
That's interesting. I love that approach. So you mentioned COVID-19, and we all know the impact that it has on us, either as a person or organization. What are the lessons can we learn from this crisis?
I think one of the biggest lessons that we can learn is, for those of us in any kind of leadership position, we've had to make decisions with imperfect information. One of the things we did here at the university, I mean, this goes back to a year ago, May, when we were arguably really starting to understand how big of a problem this is. We had to think, how can we still be successful in our principal mission of delivering education for the people in Nebraska and for all over the country and the world? And we made some pretty big decisions. We said, first of all, we're going to figure out how to be open campus, you know, for the fall of 2020. We had to take a look at our costs for our online programs, which were overpriced.
Okay.
And knowing that the more people that were going to do online education, we made major adjustments. We had dropped our price by 9%. We looked at our academic calendar and realized that travel during COVID period for our students, faculty, and staff would maybe make the problem worse. So we changed the academic calendar so that the holiday break over Thanksgiving and the end of the year were all rolled into one. We froze tuition for 2 years. The exact opposite of what this university had done over the course of decades when we had a financial crisis. So we did some things that appeared opposite, and maybe the biggest thing we did in understanding what our real strategy is, which was affordability, accessibility, and student success or growth, was to make the Nebraska Promise a reality. And that was a free tuition program for any Nebraskan who earned $60,000 or less. We had instant success with that program. Over 7,000 Nebraska students signed up for that last year. And we actually grew our university enrollment for the first time in 3 years at the height of a global pandemic. We were the only Midwestern university that grew its enrollment last year.
That's really impressive. Congratulations. So as a president of the Nebraska University System covering 4 universities, what are your major goals that you want to see or you want to accomplish?
Yeah. You know, we are a major economic driver for the state. You know, farming and agriculture and ranching, those are, you know, $1 in $4 in Nebraska come from that market. But, you know, next to manufacturing in Nebraska, we're right up there. We return about $7.50 for every dollar the state invests in the university. So we have a responsibility to the Nebraska taxpayers to not only be that bastion for education for its students, but also to be the economic developer for the workforce of Nebraska. So I believe that the University of Nebraska, how it goes is how the state's going to go. So we want to continue to grow. We want to continue to embrace our students, not as a product, but as the customer. So students should view us as catering to them. We want to make them successful. We just opened up a 4-year graduation guarantee that will reduce student cost if you can come and graduate in 3.5 or 4 years. We're opening a program out in Kearney called New Nebraskan. So anybody in the country can go to UNK for the same cost of in-state tuition. And that's gathering some more students. And we're looking at how we can expand that in Omaha and in Lincoln. So yeah, I think we have a real responsibility to help develop the future workforce for the state of Nebraska.
I mean, that's pretty bold. That's the way to attract more people to come to Nebraska.
Yes.
See that.
We're trying to be bold. We're trying to be innovative. And we know our online programs are growing leaps and bounds, not just because of COVID-19, but because more students see they're rolling out and expanding their portfolio to use online programs. So we're investing a lot in our online education programs.
Yeah. President Carter, what keeps you going, moving forward?
What excites me is seeing student success. When I know that we're doing that, when we're taking somebody that may have never seen a 4-year undergraduate diploma as something in their family. Maybe they're the first to ever attend university in their family. I look at Omaha, where nearly 50% of our student body, we're talking 16,000 students, of which about 12,000 are in the undergraduate programs. Nearly 50% of them are first-generation students. That's remarkable, and that's starting to speak to this changing ethnic demographic that is right here in Nebraska. It is changing, especially with the Hispanic community, the fastest growing community in the state. UNO, University of Nebraska at Omaha, is close to becoming a Hispanic serving institution. That's 25% of its student body being Hispanic. They're at 21% today. So we have to understand that and not only help them get in the door, but make them successful. So that's some of the work that's to be done.
Yeah. President Carter, if you have a power to make one positive change in the world, what would that be?
If I could just wave a magic wand, I'd like to be able to have people see the good in each other so that we can stop being so divisive, whether it be politically, the racial friction that has been shown this year. As much progress as we've made in some of those spaces, it sometimes seems like we take one step forward and 2 back. And I just wish we could start to see the good in each other so that we can have real, unbridled conversation and start to understand and listen to each other better.
That's awesome. President Carter, if you were to be an animal, what kind of animal would you be and why?
I'd have to say a bird, and I'd probably want to be a hawk.
Why is that?
There's something, maybe it's because I spent most of my life in the skies. There's something about seeing a hawk and how they operate in their freedom and how they live their life that I think that I could be attracted to that.
To that, okay. President Carter, what would be your last advice tip to my audience?
My last advice would be, again, going back to what could I do if, is to embrace what is really, I think, the good life here in Nebraska. We really do have a good life. We have quality of life. Cost of living here is very, very reasonable. And I think we just have to remind ourselves to be good to each other. Be good to ourselves and be good to each other.
Thank you so much, President Carter, for your time.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching episode 77 with President Carter. We'll see you next time.